Hey guys, Gavin here. I thought I would do a quick video because I'm working on setting a solar setup on the Lance camper right now. And I get questions about this quite a bit, honestly, because people get campers and they want solar, but I think it's intimidating to people. It's actually pretty simple. So I'm just going to show you how a simple solar setup works, and we're going to get it running on this RV.
So breathe.
Oh, let's put that on a truck, because that won't be terrifying at all. Hey guys, Gavin Syme here. Today's video is going to be very practical in nature as we take a look at how to be off-grid. The first thing I want to do so that power is always working, I don't have dead batteries and everything just works, is have a solar panel, because it makes all the difference in the world. Let's go up here, and I'm just going to crawl up. We always walk gently on these RV roofs. They are not very tough. You're going to buy some solar panels, like these little 100-watt panels right here. And then you're going to buy solar panel brackets. These are all pretty standard things. You can Amazon them, but I'll put some links in comments for this. Bottom line, you're going to get panels, brackets. Usually they come with connectors, like an Mc4 connector. I believe that's what these are. There's some different variants of the MC connector. So they come with leads, positive and negative leads coming off of each panel. This is a 12 volt, whereas some panels are 18 volts, some panels are 24 volts, etc. For a small setup like this, the voltage of your panels is not that critical. The panels that have good reviews and seem like quality and fit the configuration you're doing are pretty much all you need. Just have the leads coming out of one, coming out of the other, going into a Y connector to connect both those panels down to one wire, which connects to this cable that I bought. This is just PV cable, photovoltaic cable. All of this is stuff you can get online on Amazon. I figure out where I want them. I attach the brackets to the panel, set it on here, mark all the holes. Then I come back and put mollies in each of those holes, drill them in, and you can see I put little beads of silicone on the top of each so that they don't leak into the camper. And you can see that I've got a big mess of silicone right here. Get down from here, I'll show you the charge controller, how I've wired it, and that we've got voltage. The work is mostly done. I didn't want to do a long video of like installing everything, because your install is going to be a little different. The bottom line is get your parts, mount your panels, and I'll show you how easy it is to wire these up. What do you need to install solar? It's pretty straightforward. It's just the kind of stuff that you should already have in an RV anyways, because RVs always break. They're a house going down the freaking road. So you should have a drill, pliers. You're probably gonna need some wrenches to take off terminals, some wire strippers. Always have those. You're always fixing wiring. And of course, a voltmeter. These little type here with the claw in the end that measures amps are also really useful. You'll probably also need a couple of these spade bits, because you're gonna need to drill some larger holes when you go to bring the wires down and things like that. And having the right tools makes it all so much easier. Solar system consists of solar panels, the wires and connectors to connect those solar panels to a charge controller, and wires to connect the charge controller to the batteries. That's really all there is to it. There's not a lot of rocket science. We're keeping this one pretty simple. Here's the wires we looked at on the top that were coming from the pigtails of the combined two solar panels. I just have to run them to a charge controller. So at that point, it's just a matter of deciding where to put the charge controller into the right relation to the batteries. In my case, I decided to put it right down here, even though the positioning is kind of weird of all this electronic stuff underneath the sink cabinet. That's where all the main electrical connections are from the factory. Okay, so what have we done? I've ran the cable down from the top, and I just ran it down through the bottom of the cabinet. Normally I like to run it completely inside, but because this is a camper and it's pretty small, there's not a lot of hollow spaces up here, because what I'm gonna do is I'll just wrap some black conduit so this looks tidy. If I'd really wanted to, I could have used more wire and made it more complex and ran through cabinets and then back into here and down and behind the stove and then back into here. But that would have got me a lot longer wire. So I just opted for the simpler, not quite as elegant installation. It's coming down over here, and you can see it right here. It's coming here. And where's it going? It's going right up to this charge controller. So if I put a voltmeter on this right here, you can see I'm going to put one here on the negative, common negative block, and here on the common positive block. So basically the battery is running into this, and then all the other main lines are running out from that. It's just a terminal block, okay? And you can see my battery is really low right now. I've got 9.79. Those are going into our little MPPT 15 amp charge controller into the PV, just a plus and minus coming down from our 12 volt panels, which actually in full sun are running an open circuit of like 18, 19 volts, okay? So the reason we don't run those directly into the battery, what this does is we go into the controller, and then the controller converts everything to the right voltage for your battery. So you charge a battery at like 13.5, 14 volts, but with more amps. The more amps, the better, right? We come out of the battery, and then our negative from the battery output just goes into our negative common block. And all that I have left is our positive, which is right here, coming out of the charge controller. I want you to listen to this fan, because as I touch this is hot now. If I touch this to the common positive, you can hear how that fan just ramped up, because we went from having 9 volts to full power. So I'm going to hook this up properly by unscrewing the nut and connecting it, and we'll take a look at what our amperages and voltages are looking like. And we can see our voltage now is 13.25-ish, which means we're charging. Let's see how much we're charging. This is also an amp meter. So yeah, this here, if you put this around a positive or a negative wire, and I'll put it around the one we just put in, and we can see here, I got to put it to the 20 amp mode. There we go. And DC, I have to switch it to DC. Okay, so we can see that we are now charging at a rate of 9 amps coming through the wire out of the charger and into the battery wire. Some people would argue that I should not be running my charge wire from the controller into just the common block where the battery wire comes from, that I should actually take my charge cable from here and run it straight back to the battery. In this case, I don't see much benefit to that because the gauge wire is about the same, and I would just be drilling extra holes and running extra wire. So that's why I did it the way I did. However, on my bigger installs, like in my bigger RV, yes, I did actually run to the charge controller, solar panel, charge controller, straight to the battery bank. If we look here, we can see this battery, it was functionally dead, and now we have DC of 13 volts, which of course doesn't mean the battery's charged. It's just that the solar power has brought the battery up to 13.5 volts because we have all that power. We have 10 amps of charge coming in right now. Now the inverter is a separate beast. If I want to put an inverter in, especially one that pulls a sizable amount of juice, I really don't want to connect that to these wires in here. Yes, I could connect the wire to here and to the ground from the inverter, and it would work. The problem is, if I was actually pulling 1,000 watts from this inverter, it will be pulling 100 amps at 12 volts, more or less, from the battery. I want a big wire for an inverter, and you can see the difference. Here's the PV wire that we were using. This works fine because we're bringing down 10, 15, 20 amps, right? But to be able to pull really high loads for an inverter, I want to be able to not have that line loss. I don't want it heating up. So I think I'll place the inverter here, then run the cables back through, which means I'll need some longer cables, but I basically want to gauge about like this. Now the charge controller is the brains of the operation. There's a couple. There's a PWM, which is kind of the old school charge controller, and these MPPT charge controllers, which are basically more computerized and supposed to be more efficient. You can do some research, and what you pick is not a big deal. The basic controllers are really cheap. You can spend quite a bit more on an MPPT controller, particularly if you're talking about a large system. But this was still like, I think $60 or something like that. It wasn't that expensive. And it takes good advantage of the power, and it manages everything. It has all the charge management in it and everything on a higher level than most of your really cheap controllers. So you can do some research on the different types of charge controllers, and you can see here that this will handle up to 15 amps, which is just about right, because 200 watts, if I was truly getting 200 watts of solar going out at 12 volts or 13 to the battery, that would be right around 15 amps. Let's climb up on the roof of my 34-footer here with 2 slides. I mean, this one has a lot more lights, a lot more power, and we use it for bigger road trips. Okay, so here's the top of my 34-footer. You can see, again, walking gently, the panels are much bigger. These are 250 watt panels, and these are actually coming down. And again, you can see we're hooking up the cables, which are stretched to their limit. They're just running out to these simple Y joints. I've actually put a little junction box on this one here because I have a lot of wires, security camera, antennas for the cellular booster, and of course the PV wires, and do use a full-size ladder if you need it to be safe. So you can see that this is double slide outs, bunkhouse, main bedroom up here. This is like a 34 footer, and we have lived in this for as long as like 6 months at a time, and the whole family pretty comfortably, honestly. So this needs a lot more power. We have an internal meter on this one because the charge controller is in the front compartment. A switch that actually switches from shore power to inverter. So the inverter is wired into the main power of the coach. The principle's the same on this charge controller though as the other one. It's just a larger MPPT, and it's put up here. It's big. And you can see we also have this, this nice sine wave inverter, and this is all wired in. In this case, what's happening, the solar wires are coming down, they're going inside the cabinets on the inside, running straight to the charge controller, and then the cables from the charge controller are going straight into here, running underneath the underbelly and going right up to the batteries, which are right out here, okay? So in this case, because it's a larger install, a lot more wattage, we've gone solar panel, charge controller straight to the batteries, not to any of the other integrated power systems. And ditto for the big inverter here, this big inverter, and these huge cables right here. I think this is like double aught copper, is running in as short a line as possible, straight to our battery bank of 4 Trojan style 6-volt batteries. This is my little Lance camper. I wanted something a little smaller than my big rig because the roads are small down in Mexico, and sometimes I just want to go on short trips. Picked it up, I had it brought down from the States for about $10,000, and it actually got in an accident on the way down and got rear-ended. So we had to do a bunch of work, and it's kind of been a process getting everything back in order and getting inspired by it again. This whole side like was hit, so everything here was completely smashed, but it actually didn't screw up the interior, fortunately. So it was just external work that had to be done on it. And we still need to get actually some new metal panels because you can see that it's a little dinged up. My dad actually did a lot of the straightening up. And then we went to a local body shop and some welders and stuff, and they built a brand new bumper for it and the whole works, and we got it back on the road. But all right, guys, we have got power without any need for the outside world or fuel or anything like that. Self-contained, off the grid, from God's golden sun power. That is my favorite kind. And the best part is I can go out in the sticks with this. I can load this thing up with water and food and go on a road trip, and I don't need to be plugged in. All I need is water and food. I don't need to rely on hookups. And I can't emphasize this enough. People buy an RV, and largely for electricity, they pay like these ridiculous $20, $30, $50, $70 a night to park an RV. You might as well have a hotel at that point. Although your RV is more comfortable once you have it set up. Put solar on your RV. It's so much quieter. Sure, carry a generator if you're dealing with a big enough rig. For this, nah, I won't need to carry a generator. For my big rig, I carry a generator so I can run the air conditioner and things like that, because it would take an enormous amount of solar to run the air conditioner. The main thing is the independence, the not having to fill generators with gasoline, the not having to listen to them, the not having to pay people outrageous prices just so you can plug in and use a little bit of their electricity. It makes you independent, and it's worth it. And you know what? There's something along the way as you're building a solar system, all right? And by the way, this is a little Mc4 wrench. Get a set of these with your connectors. Again, I'll link a bunch of this stuff in my video of this on YouTube, but this will make putting your connectors on really easy. Now this thing self-maintains. That charge controller, there's no turning this on or off all the time. There's no coming out to say, oh, do I need to turn the solar on? They're just on. Now you can get fancy, you can get tilting solar panels to make them more efficient. People that are, for example, in Quartzsite, Arizona for 6 months of the year in one place do this. I installed tilting solar panels on my first solar install and honestly never used them because it was just crawling up there and I was usually not there for that long. And so set it up however works for you. And the process of setting it up is going to help you understand that cracker box you're living in a little better, how the wires work, where things go, and help you learn to fix it. Because the one thing you want to do if you have an RV and you want to be independent and not paying people obscene amounts of money just to park and have repairs done while you wait for weeks, is just to learn how to fix your RV. It's not rocket science. It's usually loose pieces, new parts that have broke that you can order off the internet, wires that you need to fix that have shaken loose. RVs overall are really simple, and so is solar. So get in there, get it working, and go camping. Not in a campground, but, you know, in the wild. It's independent, it's off-grid, it's a super camper now.
Please, please, darling.